I had always believed in a fair and just world. A world where, irrespective of the amount of suffering and failure one experiences, they are blessed with equal volume of joy and success. I know life in Ghana was tough, but I consoled myself with the idea that I have something valuable that people in developed countries do not have. But living in the US made me realize that there are actually two ways of existing on earth: living and surviving. If you find yourself in a world where your basic needs like food, shelter, and security are met or guaranteed, you are living life. Forget about all the other needs of life like happiness, love, peace, and having a sense of purpose in life, because all of those things are bonuses considering the fact that majority of people in the world are struggling each day just to find something to eat. Innocent people in war zones are struggling and battling every single day just to stay alive. People on hospital beds are praying for a miracle to keep them alive. You see, what makes a fair life is how much natural evil a person experiences in their life. I am clearly aware of the fact that everyone in life experiences natural evil irrespective of their wealth, and that we all alternate between these modes of existence. But the worst part is, the scale is not balanced. Some people are literally welcomed into the world with natural evil. It is either they are born with incurable diseases or disabilities, or they are born into a difficult society, or they are born into war zones where they get to spend the rest of their lives trying to stay alive. And that, my friends, is what I call simply unfair and unjust. Theologians have been bothering themselves with the problem of evil for many decades. I am really not concerned about why God will allow evil on earth in the first place. I am more concerned about why He does not distribute this evil equally among all people. Why do some people have to suffer more than others? Here is what I was taught. Believing in God will make me the son of God. That means that I get to inherit all the riches and promises of God in the Bible. David, who was the friend of God, literally said that, "I have been young and now I'm old, and I have not seen a righteous man forsaken, nor his seed begging bread." It's like being an Israelite in the Old Testament. You become God's person and then God fights your battles for you. So it's that simple, right? Believe in God and you'll be on the fair side of life. Well, not quite. Because if that were to be the case, then the most religious countries will be the most successful countries. Africa is one of the most religious continents on earth. But then what do we see? Well, I know some will argue that we are not righteous enough to receive God's blessing, and what if God blesses us in a way that we cannot see? But still, here's my question to the argument. How can you say God has blessed me if I am starving to death? I know people who love God, who are willing to sacrifice every single thing that they have for God, and still have to toil just to make ends meet. I remember in 2020 during the quarantine period when I was in Ghana, my mom and I will fast all day. Not because we are necessarily fasting unto the Lord, but because there is actually no food there to eat. You see, I remember one time I was there with her and she was telling me that, "Melvin, how can I serve God with all my life and sacrifice every single thing that I have for Him all these ages and still have to beg in order to eat?" I could see the disappointment in her eyes as tears began running down her cheek. I was triggered, unable to watch, and that was the moment my journey of finding answers began. Here's what I think happens, and this is just a part of a long story. We live in a crazy world full of evil, a world we can neither make sense of nor discover the purpose of our lives. It is all chaotic, and at least we need some sort of explanation to the misfortunes that happens in our lives. So then the church opens their door to us, promising us of a meaningful life and protection from the evil world. So then we get in, and what happens next? The worship music breaks our tender hearts into pieces. We become vulnerable and empty our hearts unto the Lord. The strong community in the church strengthens us. We see miracles in our lives and around us. We begin making good choices, reduce moral sin, become the best versions of ourselves. we truly find hope and peace in church. But here is where it all gets complicated. Somewhere or somehow, natural evil still finds its way in our life. We starve, we lose that promotion, we fail that test, we lose our loved one, we get sick. A horrible natural disaster just ambushes us. Everything begins going downhill. And at this point, when you question the church of its promises, they blame you for not having enough faith to receive God's promises, or for not living a righteous life enough to deserve God's protections and mercies. And of course, we fall victim to all of these claims because we are not perfect like Jesus. And at least if we had as little faith as a mustard seed, we could command the mountains in our lives to move into the oceans. Faith and righteous living now becomes the currency of a good life. The more faith you have, the more you manifest God's mercies and His protections in your life. I somehow know that part of the reason why my mom was crying that day was because she felt the guilt that she had inflicted such a survival life on herself and on her family. Maybe for not living a righteous life like Jesus, or for not believing enough. And that is how the church institutionalizes guilt as a virtue. And that is just another level of evil, because the church makes you feel like you're responsible for all the evil that is happening in your life. So the clear problem here is, how do we perceive evil? What if, and this is a big if, the God you are running to is the same God who created the evil you are running from? Does that change anything? Yes, it changes a lot. So stick around to find out. First things first, let me classify that the evil that I'll be making reference to throughout this video is natural evil and not moral evil. That is the ability of man to intentionally harm another person. So now that that is out of the way, let us discover the fact that God created evil. I form the light and create darkness. I make peace and create evil. I, the Lord, do all these things. This is just one of many verses in the Bible where God declared that He indeed created evil. But if you're not well convinced, join me on a journey to the creation story.
In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth.
Now that alone is enough. What do we know about heaven? Heaven is the epitome of perfection. There is no pain or evil in heaven. It is built with gold. Everything is perfect in heaven. Now my question is, how can God create such a wonderful place like heaven and at the same time create such a horrible place like earth? In the next verses, God had to do so much work on earth for earth to be good enough for humans to inhabit. And even after God created light and He saw that it was good, instead of getting rid of darkness, He kept it and even gave it a name as night. And each day the Bible will say, and the evening and the morning were the first day. And what this is telling me is that we need both light and darkness to make a complete sense of life. And one way to see it is that good cannot exist without knowing what evil is. How can you know what pleasure is if you have never experienced pain? If we never had darkness, then how can we know that light is good? So in short, evil helps us to pursue what is good. Now imagine we are living in a world of utopia. There is no moral and natural evil. You never get hungry. You are infinitely happy. You are enveloped in peace and love. There is no sickness, death, and natural disasters. Now tell me, what is left to do? Nothing, because everything around you is perfect. And for that matter, there is even no purpose of your life on earth, because all you're going to do all day is to just sit because you don't need anything. You see, I love how Jordan Peterson put it. He said, a hero without limitation has no story. And of course, such a utopic world is not even realistic. The closest utopic world that we can ever get to is if we got rid of all moral evil. That is, if all humans on earth chose to do good. But even for that, we will still need to deal with the natural evil of satisfying our hunger, finding warmth and shelter, dealing with sickness, dealing with death, seeking happiness and finding meaning in life. And that is the moment the power of humanity unveils and our purpose of serving one another manifests. We build a strong community that will feed one another, shelter and clothe each other, console each other in our horrible moments and celebrate our joyous moments together. And does all of that sound familiar to you? Well, that's the church. And that explains why the church is a very attractive place for people to find themselves. Now let's come back to the creation story. Now if you pay close attention, you realize that each day God said that whatever He had made was good. And I find that to be a little suspicious because of course you are God, and so whatever you make must not only be good but also perfect. Here's what I think is going on. On the 6th day when God said, let us create man in our own image and after our likeness, what I understand God's image and God's likeness to be is in two ways. The first one is our ability to have dominion over the earth, which is equivalent to our ability to make choices in life and continue God's creation. Now the second one is the ability of humans to see things in God's perspective. Why am I saying that? You see, God created Adam and Eve naked and He said it was very good. But after Adam and Eve ate the fruit of knowledge of good and evil and they realized that they were naked, they saw that to be bad and so they hid from God. Now here's the first red flag. How can Adam and Eve find something bad in a world that God said is good? What I'm trying to say here is that our judgment of good and evil is not the same as God's. Here is an example. In John chapter 9, Jesus passed by. He saw a man which was blind from birth, and His disciples asked Him, saying, Master, who did sin, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? Jesus answered, neither hath this man sinned nor his parents, but that the work of God should manifest in him. Like what? Someone was born from birth blind just because Jesus was coming to heal that person? Why would God torture us for the glory of His name? And even Jesus, the icon of morality, finds this to be fair and just. Our judgment of good and evil is truly not the same as God's. So where is all of this leading to? You see, the church makers see that Satan is the one who caused all the natural evil in our lives. It is something like if you do not believe in God enough and live a righteous life, then the devil will invade your life and cause you so much misfortune. So now not only are we fighting natural evil planned by God as Satan, but we are also blaming ourselves for allowing Satan to win. Here's a challenge that I have for you. I want us to see all the misfortunes, the failures and the hardship and the struggles in life as God's plan instead of the work of the devil. Because in that way, we will live a life void of fear from any Satan or devil. We shall become at peace within ourselves because we are not going to blame every single misfortunes on ourselves for allowing Satan to win. God did not promise us a life without evil. He actually said that He's going to be with us in times of darkness. Now what that means, I don't know. Because during times of struggle, we always look for the situation to change, or we always await a miracle as a sign that God is with us. Jesus even shouted on the cross that, God, why hast thou forsaken me? You see, God wants you to go through that pain, and so He's not going to take it away from you, else He's going to ruin His whole plan. And always remember, our judgment of good and evil is not the same as God's. But Melvin, does that mean that I should settle for less? No, because coming to terms with yourself that natural evil is God's plan for your life makes you focus on working through the struggle instead of waiting for a supernatural power to rescue you from the power of the devil. You see, if I had believed that the devil had gotten his way into my family and that explains why we are suffering so much, then I wouldn't have studied hard to get a scholarship to study in the US, because I would be chasing for deliverance from this devil before I move on with my life. If you're going through an addiction, don't see yourself as being chained by the spell of the devil. Rather, clear your mind of those thoughts and remind yourself that the battle is between you and your desires. So then discipline yourself, because no amount of deliverance is going to save you from a life of addiction if you keep going back to your old life. If you got rid of the idea of Satan, you realize that you are even bigger than that thing that you're going through. So if I'm proposing that we should get rid of the idea of Satan, then you may ask, Melvin, what inspires us to do evil then? What inspires us to deliberately choose to sin? And my answer to that is ourselves. The devil is our ability to choose to do evil. And that revelation, my friends, can miraculously change your life. Because instead of judging people who do evil, it makes you sympathize with them, because you realize that whatever influenced them to choose to deliberately harm another person can highly influence you too to do the same thing. And remember, God gave us dominion to rule over the earth. So that means that we have the ability to choose to do good or to do evil. But even for that, a question that I've been having is that if God gave us that choice to do evil, then isn't the existence of the choice itself evil because it tempts us to do evil? But well, how can I prove that? You know what? I'm aware that all of this is too much to take in. You see, when I was in Ghana, I began developing these ideas, but the environment I found myself in annihilated my ideas. I mean, I will go to church and I'll see people rolling on the floor seriously because they are being delivered from demons. And the Bible keeps reminding me that Satan is the one who causes all the natural evil in my life. Even Jesus himself had an encounter with Satan after his 40 days and 40 nights that he should bow to him and then he will give him all earth. So what was it all about if I'm predicting that there is no Satan? Honestly, I do not know, and I'm yet to figure out. It's all a journey, okay? This is just a little part of the story, and so I hope you subscribe to experience this amazing journey because, man, there is a lot to discover. But even if you like to still keep your idea of Satan, here's what I have to say to you. If you truly believe in God, man, you become a son of God. No evil on earth can touch you. If you find out that some misfortunes are happening in your life, that is not the work of the devil because you know that you belong to God, and once you belong to God, you are forever God's, and no amount of evil can get into your life, and that whatever is going in your life is God's plan. I know you are not perfect, and sometimes you may deliberately choose to do sin. That does not mean that God is going to leave you. It's not like God is sitting up in heaven and recording how many times you sin, and then once you sin, be like, okay, send him to the devil so that the devil can punish him for a while. No. God's love is unconditional. We are saved by grace, not by might. If you recognize throughout the video, I've been making reference to God. What God am I talking about? Honestly, I do not know. I'm still discovering that. And so if you like to discover with me on this journey of redefining God, then please subscribe to this channel and like. This is just the beginning. There is a lot more to come, and trust me, you don't want to miss it. But until then, Nyamin Kao.